We are truly in a very unique situation. Talking to a fellow reporter friend of mine, and she said it feels like the world is on fire. And I could definitely understand that with major historic protests happening right now in Hong Kong, Ecuador, Haiti, France, the Netherlands, Iraq, Chile, Barcelona, and of course Lebanon, which we will be talking about in this video. Truly something that is very unique, very strange, but we're going to be talking about this with freelance journalist who is based in Beirut right now, Dustin Weinrib. He is on the ground, and it definitely looks very massive as media reports are coming in of over 1 million people demonstrating on the streets. A lot of it looks very peaceful, a lot of it looks very celebratory. But first of all, Dustin, how has your experience been there on the ground, and what are you seeing happening unfold in Lebanon right now?
Well, it's been markedly different day to day. So the start of the protest was late Thursday night, following some announcements from the government, which I'm sure we'll get to. But predominantly from Friday, Saturday, and today, it's been mostly peaceful people in the streets, waving flags with their children, singing songs, lots of slogans that we're used to hearing in this region, like Thawra, which is revolution, and the people want the downfall of the regime, which was a classic Arab Spring slogan. On Friday and Thursday night, there was some violence. There was some people destroying property, mainly banks and some empty office buildings downtown. But since then, and since the violent crackdown that occurred Friday night, there's been little of that, and it's been very joyful, like you've said.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing that this is a mass revolt against supposed corruption and poverty. What do you think is kind of starting these protests? And many people are, of course, saying that this has parallels to the Arab Spring. Do you see those parallels, and what do you see as some of the kind of starting points for this particular protest in Lebanon?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this is cross-party and cross-sect, which if you are even vaguely familiar with Lebanese politics, sect has everything to do with politics in this country, up until now, seemingly. So Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, Christians, Druze are all in the streets and are all protesting against the regime, regardless of their party. And so that's definitely unique for Lebanon.
Yeah, if I could just cut you off, yeah, my friend was telling me how the kind of Lebanese government works, and it's really unique of how every kind of religion is its own kind of political party, and how there's a checks and balances to make sure that one particular religion doesn't have more power over the other one. It was really fascinating to learn about that. I had no idea about, and of course, people watching this video probably have no idea about it as well. But as you just said, all of them came out to the streets. It's pretty impressive to see there must be something really up that this kind of coalition that usually is fighting each other kind of came together.
Yeah, so as you're talking about the confessional system where there's an allocated amount of seats for each sect and certain offices have to be held by certain sects, that has existed since the independence of Lebanon and changed significantly following the end of the Civil War. But we've seen the decline in sectarian identification, especially in the last few years, and especially among young people who just don't have as strong an identification with their particular sect and are more attuned to the deficiencies of the confessionalist system. So the acute reason for protest was a 20-cent tax that was announced to be levied on WhatsApp or other voice over internet protocol calls. And that was going to be levied each day that one would call. Of course, this is a country where basically everyone uses WhatsApp to make calls. This is also a country that has one of the highest mobile data rates in the region, largely due to a government duopoly. And this has all been compounding as a result of an economic crisis that Lebanon is in. Debt to GDP ratio is 150%. The deficit is sky high, and the government, which has been racing to construct a budget, has been trying to find ways to cut the deficit in order to unlock funds that have been promised by European donors. But instead of doing substantive reforms to the public sector, to the electrical utility, they decided basically to levy regressive taxes, which, especially the WhatsApp tax, given how just blatantly universal it is, was the final straw.
Yeah, that definitely sounds pretty ridiculous. And I remember driving in a car with my friends today, and we were talking about all the protests that are happening, and Lebanon came on, and they were like, "What's happening in Lebanon?" And then my friend, who has no idea what's going on, doesn't even know about what the protest, he turned around and he was like, "Government." The reason something is happening, the reason people are protesting, the reason people are up in arms is because of government, which is, surprisingly, a large creation of a lot of the big unrest that is happening, and their kind of crony kind of capitalism that is just putting a strong weight against an individual who's trying to survive. And we've seen very, very, very kind of similar reasons to why the yellow vest movement is as popular as it is. We've seen the kind of austerity measures in Ecuador being pushed back. We're seeing new taxes, new regulations, new controls by government being pushed back in all parts of the world. But some would say that this is a tightening of the grip of the old guard. People are very opinionated on this, but before we get into the different kind of root causes of this kind of situation that's, in my opinion, only going to be getting worse here, one thing that's kind of unique about this protest is the kind of celebratory aspect of this, is the kind of not only just big alliance that's happening here, but the way that this protest is happening, which is kind of unique. I mean, you see a lot of people dancing in the streets, celebrating as well. It's not usually the kind of scenes that you see during a mass civil unrest. I wish we could get into that, Dustin, because I had a friend literally message me. I had a partisan girl, Mimi, message me, and she's like, "You should go to Lebanon. There's a bunch of hippies there dancing around and having a really good time." Is that a fair characterization there, Dustin? And what would you attribute to this kind of celebratory, kind of dancing, happy kind of mode around this protest, which is not what we're used to seeing, especially in places like Hong Kong and France?
Yeah, so it's been joyful and celebratory. On Friday there was a good amount of destruction of property and stuff like that. Really, just like that release, and that was going on Thursday, and the roads have intermittently been blocked by burning tires, stuff like that. But I would say that 95% of the people that have been at the protests that I've seen have been in this sort of revelatory atmosphere. And part of it is like getting the sort of the initial release of protesting, and then just like uniting as a country and feeling united and feeling powerful in that unity. Because Lebanon is actually a democracy, albeit a sort of distinct like version of a democracy. I feel like people are very like free to express themselves, and there's not as much of a sort of anti-authoritarian aspect to it. But that's definitely, like I said, on Friday there was some destruction of property, and then there was a violent police crackdown that's getting beaten in the street.
So we're also hearing that there's going to be more protests happening, that the authorities are bracing for a fourth day. You're there right now on the ground. How do you see this kind of unfolding? Where do you see this going from here?
There's definitely going to be a fourth day of protests. That's unquestionable. Today was the largest scale so far, at least in Beirut, in terms of number of people. But basically, there's been speculation that there will be resignations. The ultimate goal of most of the protesters that I talked to was the resignation of the current government and the cabinet. The prime minister on Friday gave a 72-hour ultimatum to come up with solutions, and he provided those tonight, and they were involved cutting government salaries and a long litany of sort of like everything that protesters could ever have wanted. No new taxes, total reform of the electricity sector. But I don't think that most people trust that that is going to be done, and promises like that have been made in the past. The difficulty being that if, for example, Saad Hariri, who is the leader of the current government, if he resigns, there's not a clear path to form a different government, especially because the prime minister role has to be filled by a Sunni Muslim, and there's not clearly a political leader that could take that and form a government. So, although people that I've talked to are aware that that would, probably make the economic situation worse in the short term, just because of like the literal lack of a government to approve budgets, et cetera, et cetera. People are fed up enough that I've talked to people who acknowledge that it'll be a short-term pain, but that it is what is necessary to go forward. But honestly, I don't know what will actually transpire in the next week, just given the sort of no man's land we're in here with like the cross-sectarian support. It's never happened in the modern history of the country.
Yeah, extremely unique to seeing all these people come together. They're celebrating as if they already won, which is very interesting to see. But I think one thing that you pretty much hit the nail on the head with is that people are fed up, and they're being fed up worldwide more and more. And a lot of this has to do with the economics, which of course we get into on this particular YouTube channel. But Dustin, thank you so much for your kind of insight, for all the reporting on the ground. I kind of want to leave it with you with the last kind of thing that you want to say about this protest, and also specifically, where can people find your work or support your efforts with your reporting on the ground there in Lebanon?
Yeah, so I guess I would like to harp on this being like a really joyful, impressive thing that most Lebanese people are incredibly happy is happening, and regardless of particular views on politics, that sentiment is shared across the entire country. And right now, I am starting a blog, which I have just by the time this airs, it'll probably have some content on it. So that is al-thoura.blogspot.com, and that'll have lots of media from the protests and analysis of particularities related to the root causes, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. We're definitely it's a little confusing of a URL, but we're going to put it in the description so you guys could check it out yourself. Dustin, thank you for your incredible work there on the ground. I really appreciate your time. We got the best internet we can there in Lebanon, but the message got across, the audio got across. So again, I thank you very much. I might be joining you there soon, or Chile, or somewhere else. Again, I still don't know exactly what I'm doing, but stay tuned for more. Check out Dustin's website in the link below. And most importantly, thank you for watching and supporting Real Independent Media. We wouldn't be here without you. That's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.